major U.S. investors in e-commerce giant Coupang have notified the Korean government that they plan to file arbitration claims, accusing authorities of discriminatory actions against the firm. This follows a series of investigations into the U.S.-listed company after a massive customer data breach affected more than 33 million customer accounts. A charter plane carrying 73 South Koreans detained in Cambodia for alleged involvement in online scams arrived back in Korea this morning. They were forced to return home to face investigations after public outrage flared last summer when a Korean student was found dead after reportedly being forced to work at a scam compound. Netflix animated hit K-pop Demon Hunters has earned 2 Oscar nominations, Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song for GOLDEN. The film also won Best Animated Film and Best Song at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards earlier this month. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with U.S. investors in e-commerce giant Coupang moving toward international arbitration after accusing South Korea of discriminatory regulatory actions following a massive data breach investigation. The investors have also urged Washington to launch a trade probe, raising the dispute to a potential South Korea-U.S. trade issue. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
2 major U.S. investors in e-commerce giant Coupang have formally notified the South Korean government of their intent to pursue international arbitration, accusing authorities of discriminatory treatment toward the U.S.-listed firm. Green Oaks Capital Partners and Altimeter Capital Management said Thursday they plan to file arbitration claims under the South Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. The move follows a series of South Korean government investigations into Coupang after a massive customer data breach was revealed last November. In a notice sent to President Lee Jae-myung and the Justice Ministry, the investors said their combined equity stake in Coupang exceeds $1.5 billion. They argued that regulatory pressure intensified as Coupang gained market share from domestic Korean and Chinese competitors. In a separate filing to the Office of the United States Trade Representative, the investors also urged Washington to launch a probe under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 and consider trade remedies. They claimed that enforcement actions against Coupang far exceeded those faced by rival firms. The investors cited hundreds of audits, inspections, and penalties imposed by multiple South Korean agencies, including the Fair Trade Commission, tax authorities, labor regulators, and financial watchdogs. They described the data breach as limited and accused officials of exaggerating the incident to inflame public opinion and harm the company. They also said the regulatory campaign erased billions of dollars in market value, losses they say were borne by U.S. shareholders, including retirement funds. In response, the Blue House said the investigation should not be viewed as a trade dispute with the U.S., stressing that the probe reflects the unprecedented scale of the data leak and is being conducted in accordance with South Korean law. Coupang was founded by Korean-American entrepreneur Kim Bum-seok and generates about 90% of its revenue in South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
73 South Koreans accused of operating large-scale scam operations in Cambodia have arrived back in South Korea to face investigation. A charter Korean Air flight arrived at Incheon International Airport on Friday morning from Phnom Penh, carrying the suspects who were forcibly repatriated. Authorities say the suspects allegedly defrauded 869 South Korean victims of around $33.3 million through romance scams, fake investment schemes, and other fraudulent activities. Arrest warrants were executed on board the aircraft, and the suspects were taken into custody upon arrival. The move follows public outrage last summer when a Korean student was found dead after reportedly being forced to work at a so-called scam compound in Cambodia. Police say this was South Korea's largest ever repatriation of criminal suspects from a single country. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff began talks in Moscow late on Thursday night. This high-stakes meeting comes hours after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump met at Davos. Our Kim Bo-young tells us more.
Top U.S. negotiators, including Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow late on Thursday. In a statement posted on Telegram, the Kremlin said that talks between Putin and Witkoff were underway. President Putin had previously indicated that he would discuss with Witkoff a plan to allocate $1 billion from Russia's frozen assets in the United States into the Board of Peace, a new international body proposed by Trump. Before that, U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had a meeting on Thursday in Davos, Switzerland, which both of them described positively. On the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, the two leaders had an hour-long session on post-war security guarantees for Ukraine and plans for economic reconstruction.
I had a very good meeting with President Zelensky. Everybody wants to have the war end.
Zelensky, too, gave a positive assessment of the talks and added that Ukrainian and Russian teams will have their first trilateral meeting with U.S. officials in the United Arab Emirates on Friday and Saturday.
And I think that it will be the first trilateral meeting in Emirates. It will be tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Yes, it will be 2 days meetings in Emirates.
Witkoff, who is visiting the Kremlin, also said earlier that he believed the two sides were down to one issue without elaborating. Kim Bo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, despite signals from U.S. President Donald Trump of a possible pause in action against Iran, substantial U.S. military forces are reportedly set to arrive in the Middle East within days. According to Reuters, citing two U.S. officials on Thursday, U.S. Navy destroyers and fighter aircraft began moving from the Asia-Pacific last week as tensions with Iran escalated following a harsh crackdown on recent protests. It added that Washington is also weighing additional air defense deployments to the Middle East. Trump said on the same day that multiple vessels were being sent to the region as a precaution. And amid one of the harshest cold waves of the season, South Korea's Navy Sea Salvage and Rescue Unit has begun extreme winter training to maintain readiness for maritime rescues. Our Cho Young-eun was there.
Despite freezing temperatures, 70 deep-sea divers from the Sea Salvage and Rescue Unit pushed through grueling drills and high-intensity physical training. Operating under the motto to the vaster and deeper sea, the SSU carries out critical missions at maritime disaster sites, including search and the rescue of distressed surface ships and submarines.
Through training that mirrors real-life operations, we ensure the highest level of rescue readiness to protect the lives of our people.
The training runs for 4 days in late January, traditionally the coldest part of winter in Korea, with temperatures dropping to as low as -8 degrees Celsius. Here, the SSU runs intensive winter training to build physical endurance and mental resilience needed to withstand the winter seas.
The SSU is ready to dive into the sea even in the freezing cold, if it means protecting our fellow service members and the public. We're fully prepared to carry out any mission.
Divers conduct scuba proficiency drills in waters near Jinhae Naval Port, practicing search and rescue operations for simulated drowning victims. The highlight of the training is the Iron Platoon Selection Competition designed to test the divers' stamina, teamwork, and operational capability under extreme conditions. At the unit's basic diving training facility, divers train using a surface-applied diving system. They practice tasks such as assembling pipes and tying knots in low-visibility underwater conditions. Teamwork is further assessed through time-based competitions in group running, rubber boat paddling, and open water fin swimming. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
Amid geopolitical tensions, the price of gold continues to soar, and many analysts believe the surge is here to stay. Our correspondent Park Jun-an explains more.
The price of gold is skyrocketing day by day. And this is not just an upward trend that has been going on in the past few months. Even though the price of gold is rapidly rising, investors are actively buying it, an asset that does not decay, retains value, and is globally accepted.
My mother turned 60 this year, so I came to buy a gold bracelet as a commemorative gift. Gold prices have risen a lot recently, but I think they may continue to climb, so I felt it was better to buy it sooner rather than later.
The sharp rise in gold prices has been particularly evident over the last few years, and especially when U.S. President Donald Trump was inaugurated in January 2025. In the past 5 years, the price of gold has risen from around $1,852 per troy ounce to approximately $4,800. This is a 159.1% increase over that period. And when it comes to Korean won, the increase becomes far more pronounced. Over the same 5-year period, the purchase price of gold jumped from just 271,000 won per ton, or 3.75 grams, to 993,000 won. That marks a 266.4% increase. Although international gold prices have steeply risen, the hike is seen more prominently in Korea, with the dollar value against the Korean won appreciating by more than 33% in those 5 years. Alongside that, buying physical gold in Korea can add 15% to the price due to value-added tax and labor charges. Now, as you can see, this 1 kilogram gold bar I'm holding is worth more than 265 million Korean won, or roughly 180,000 US dollars. The managing director of the Korea Gold Exchange, whose company produces and sells billions of dollars worth of gold and silver annually in Korea, says global uncertainty has driven the steep price hikes.
Global economic instability, ongoing wars, and uncertainty surrounding the U.S. dollar's depreciation have all combined to push gold prices sharply higher, with new issues continuing to emerge, including the situation involving Greenland just yesterday. Uncertainty is intensifying, and that upward trend appears to be gaining further momentum.
Looking ahead, long-term gold prices will be shaped by a mix of inflationary trends, interest rates, and geopolitical risks. Alongside this, global economic uncertainty and monetary policy will also be key factors affecting prices. 박준환, Arirang News.
Netflix hit animated film KPop Demon Hunters has earned 2 Oscar nominations. The nominees for the 98th Academy Awards were announced on Thursday, with the film recognized for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song for Golden. Co-directed by Korean-Canadian filmmaker Maggie Kang and American director Chris Applehans. The movie was released last June and quickly became Netflix's most-watched film of all time. Earlier this month, the film also won Best Animated Film and Best Song at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards. The Oscars will be held on March 15th. And the Seoul city government has conditionally approved a request by K-pop megastars BTS to hold a comeback show in Gwanghwamun Square in March. BTS agency HYBE asked for the BTS 2026 comeback show at Seoul to be held in the downtown square on March 21st. And in a meeting on Thursday, Seoul City granted conditional approval on safety conditions being met. The concert will mark BTS' return as a full group after 3 years and 9 months, and is expected to take place the day after the group released their 5th full-length album, Arirang. Meanwhile, South Korean baseball star and San Francisco Giants outfielder Jung-hoo was briefly detained by U.S. immigration authorities following his arrival in Los Angeles. Our Chung Hee-rim tells us more.
San Francisco Giants outfielder Jung-hoo was stopped by U.S. Customs and Border Protection when he arrived at Los Angeles International Airport on Wednesday local time, before being released about an hour later. He had flown in from South Korea ahead of scheduled team activities, including a fan event in California and preparations for spring training. However, a required entry document had been left behind in Korea, according to a statement by the Giants to The Athletic on the same day,
triggering a temporary hold on E. The situation was resolved with assistance from the San Francisco Giants organization and federal authorities, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. The report stated that a spokesperson for Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives and whose district includes San Francisco, also intervened. E's agent Scott Boris cleared up possible speculation that the detention was related to the tightened immigration policies of the Trump administration. Boris told U.S. media that the incident was, quote, not political. The Giants echoed that assessment, saying the issue was quickly clarified and E was cleared to continue his travel. Now entering his third season with the team, E is expected to resume his off-season schedule without disruption. He is also set to represent South Korea at the World Baseball Classic in March. The team says no further issues are expected. 정혜림, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. President Donald Trump inaugurated his Board of Peace at the World Economic Forum on Thursday, pitching it as a global body to help maintain the Israel-Hamas ceasefire and guide Gaza's future. Trump claimed that 59 countries had signed on, but officials from only 19 countries joined at the signing ceremony in Davos. Those who rejected the invite include several key U.S. allies, among them Britain and France, citing concerns over extending an invite to Russian President Vladimir Putin and fear that the board could undermine the United Nations. Trump said the board will stabilize Gaza and, following its success, spread to other things. He also said the Board of Peace would work in conjunction with the United Nations. President Trump on Thursday filed a $5 billion lawsuit against JPMorgan Chase and its CEO Jamie Dimon. Trump alleges the bank abruptly closed multiple accounts in February 2021 with 60 days notice and no explanation after he left office in January 2021. The suit claims the closures disrupted his businesses, cut off access to millions of dollars, and forced urgent moves to other banks. It also alleges a reputational blacklist. JPMorgan denies all allegations and labeled the suit meritless, adding it closes accounts for legal or regulatory risk, not politics. Colombia on Thursday said it will suspend electricity sales to Ecuador and impose a 30% tariff on 20 Ecuadorian products, escalating a dispute over trade and anti-drug trafficking cooperation. The move followed Ecuador President Daniel Noboa's announcement a day earlier of a 30% security charge on Colombian goods starting February 1st, citing a trade deficit and limited cooperation against trafficking. Colombia's energy ministry said it suspended electricity transactions as a preventive step to protect domestic supply amid climate variability and said it will reactivate exports when conditions allow. In Japan, Tokyo Electric Power Company shut down a reactor at the world's largest nuclear power plant just hours after its restart. TEPCO on Thursday suspended the restart of the number 6 reactor at the Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear plant in Niigata, a day after workers began the restart process. It said a malfunction linked to control rods forced a halt, adding that the reactor is stable and that there had been no radioactive impact outside the plant. TEPCO said it is investigating malfunctioning electrical equipment and returned the unit to shut down for a fuller examination. The plant had been closed since the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
The week began with a deep freeze, and cold conditions are still holding firm across much of the country. Cold wave alerts remain in place for most regions, with many parts seeing temperatures dropping below -10 degrees Celsius again this morning. But afternoon temperatures will rise compared to yesterday. Then from late this afternoon, snow will begin along the west coast. And by tonight, snow could expand to more central areas. By early tomorrow, the west coast of Jeolla-do province could see up to 7 centimeters of snowfall. Gwanghwamun might get 1 to 3 centimeters. Seoul and nearby areas might get around 1 centimeter. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to -1 degree Celsius, Daegu topping out at 4 degrees. Now, meanwhile, dry weather alerts have been expanded and upgraded in eastern regions, raising fire concerns. The cold wave will persist through the weekend. While the worst of the cold has passed, temperatures will remain below normal. Stay warm in this freezing weather.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.